Mm, mm, mm. Okay. Hello. Is any sound there? Okay. I think all is set correctly. So, hello and welcome everyone to another painting live streaming with Beige Creatives. So, as usual, every Monday, I'll be with you in the next following hour, painting this time the miniature that I have been painting in the previous streamings. So, as you probably know, is this little guy that is not almost finished but very advanced. And probably, if you know, I must to mention our friends from Massive Dragon, who released a fantasy football Kickstarter some months ago, and this miniature is part of the Goblin team. So if you don't already saw this, I encourage you to take a look. And I love this kind of thematic and the miniature itself, and I must to say that this is a pleasure to continue this miniature paint with the painting of this miniature. So I hope that you enjoy as well the process, and you could see everything is a little bit advanced and some parts are still unpainted. So I'll continue with the clothes on the arm, the boots, and the belt on the belly, making some kind of textures on the miniature. Okay? Así que hola a todos. Casi se me olvida hacerlo dual language. Bueno, pues bienvenidos a otro Kickstarter a otro streaming de pintura de Beige, como estamos haciendo durante esta cuarentena para todos vosotros, durante los lunes, miércoles y viernes. Así que, pues bueno, hoy es lunes, así que ya tocaba. En esta ocasión continuaré con esta figura con la que estaba en los streaming anteriores. Si recordáis, interrumpimos estos streaming para hacer otros más temáticos del anterior Kickstarter que lanzaron Black Sun y Broken Toad hace apenas un mes. Y bueno, pues ahora retomaremos un poco los streamings con los que estábamos. Por cierto, estamos volviendo a hacer los streamings en el Facebook y no sé yo si puedo ver vuestros comentarios. Eh, ¿Podéis confirmarme a alguien, además del que el sonido y la imagen está bien, que los comentarios funcionan y los puedo ir siguiendo para que, bueno, pues lo que queráis preguntar, pues os lo responderé encantado. La verdad, no sé si puedo ver los comentarios. Qué curioso. Sí, vale, perfecto. Hola, Ruby. Bienvenido. Perfecto. Entonces, se ve bien y se oye perfecto. Vale, pues entonces a continuar con la figura que tenemos entre manos esta tarde, que bueno, pues ya le conoceréis, ¿no? Es el pequeño troll de Fantasy Football que empecé ya hace un tiempo, al principio de la cuarentena. Así que bueno, ya queda poquito para terminar esta serie de vídeos con él. Lo terminaré ya después de un par de streamings, el de hoy y el del próximo día. Yo creo que ya lo podré dar por terminado y bueno, pues ya le queda poquillo. Por detrás no lo estoy pintando para poder pintar con vosotros lo más posible y más variado, así que por detrás es casi lo mismo que hemos estado viendo por adelante. Puede ser interesante porque estoy viendo que por detrás tiene una tela. Sí, yo creo que nos va a venir bien hoy darle una vuelta a la figura y también ver un poco cómo pintar esa tela, además de las telas, pues estas que lleva en el guante y algunos cueros como el que tiene también en la mano y en la bota, y además de las correas. Es un proceso un poco parecido al que pudimos ver en el último streaming que hice sobre el Scroll Keeper, en el que hablé un poco de cómo hacer texturas en figuras grandes. Entonces, muchos a lo mejor se habrán preguntado cómo puedo hacer esas texturas en unas figuras más pequeñas. Pues de la misma manera. Si bien reduciendo el grano de la pintura, los punteados y las rayas que le hagas, pero el proceso es básicamente el mismo. Así que, ya sabéis. Hello, Stefan. Welcome again. So, remember that if you want to ask me something, feel free to make that and just enjoy the streaming. Okay, so I'll start to paint the clothes of the arm, and this arm I'll leave for off camera in order to advance this miniature. And I seen that this miniature have this piece of cloth and could be interesting to paint in this streaming. So I'll start to make some work of these parts. Okay, I think that you could see the wet palette in the background, so at the same time that I'm painting, so it's a little bit blurred, sorry for that, but I prefer to focus the image on the miniature itself, but instead the wet palette. For the base of the clothes, I will make the clothes in a creamy tone because, as I told in the very first live streaming, I need some variety of values in my miniature. Okay, so I will try to get more variety of colors and values between the different elements. Okay, so of course I could paint black, but I found that could be very interesting to make more creamy because it's a way to differentiate this piece of cloth from this little belt in the arm. As you could see, there are several parts of clothes in this area, and the piece of leather of the glove. And I think in the back will be good if I make something creamy, because all of this part will be purple or magenta. Okay, so this will give more variation of tonality, hues and values between them. Okay, so I will mix a base tone, mixing some kind of gray, green, and some kind of grayer blue. Okay, I'll look for a tertiary tone for this base tone. it's easy to make tertiary tones because mixing colors between them in the most of the cases will originate some kind of tertiary tone. Okay, I need to make it darker, so for this I will choose a darker tone. Okay, for example, this will be, this is a very dark brown. Okay, so if I add this color to my mix, I will darker a little bit the value. So I'm looking for only a grayer base tone, okay, like this. Okay, this tone will be perfect. Okay, and I'll apply this color to the piece of cloth in this way. Sorry if I'm out of the camera, that I'm always doing this kind of shit. Sorry, and just tell me that in order to correct the position. Okay, so I am thinking to use the same color for, of course, this part will be of the same color, but in this case, because this part is very hidden beneath the belly and between the legs, I will mix a darker version of this tone for this part. In order to take in account the shadow over these hidden parts. So in any case, the light will reach to this part easily, so I don't need to overlight this area. Okay, and of course in this part I return to my normal base coat tone, painting this part. Okay, in this way. Don't worry if you see that I'm painting the strips of leather near to them, because later I will correct this and I will make a base coat for this part. Okay, so I think, okay, in this part I don't need to spend too much time for this streaming in order to advance to other topics for you. I think these days I'm a little bit sad, but I'm happy because I'm showing that few people are showing the live streaming. Don't worry, because if you miss this streaming, later you could find in the Big Child YouTube channel in order to see all of this content. But I think many people is outside walking and working instead. So I'm happy because in some way the things are getting better little by little, and the isolation is in more relaxed than weeks before. So I hope that every one of you are safe. At home or not, but remember to to be cautious in this time, because we can't make again the things worse. Okay, so remember, take care, and of course stay at home painting if you can. It's a very good way to spend these days. Okay, I'm making another layer of this base tone in this way, and as you could see, this color is like a shadow tone for shadow color for these parts. Okay, okay, this will be nice to work over here. Okay, so for making some lights is pretty something similar like the belly. Okay, I don't want to make the same color as the belly, because I want some variety. Okay, hello Miguel, how are you? Welcome. Okay, so this is the thing. This is why I'm always, when someone asks me about the recipes of painting some part of the miniature, okay, this is why I recommend to not use recipes, okay, and mixing the colors. I don't achieve the same color as the belly, so in this case it's something intentional, and this is good for my color scheme. So try to mix by your own, thinking about the color theory in a basic way. We talk about these kind of things a lot of times in the streamings, and at the end it's more funny to paint in this way. Okay, so just as a reminder, okay, so I'm trying to give some light to this part. Okay, so I have a base coat that will be like my shadow tones or something like that. Okay, and I need to make lighter my base color. Okay, so for me I need a light color for do that. And why this color? Or I could use that is from in the same value, in the same range of value, so will be okay if you use this color, or for example this one. Okay, the difference between them, okay, is some value difference, but at the end every color of these three are light colors, okay, with a high value. That is everything I want. And the difference between them is that probably this color is made by white plus some kind of a little bit of red and yellow, something like that. This one have more yellow and a little bit of blue. This is why this is more neutral and desaturated. And this one I think have a little or nothing of red and a little bit of blue, and of course some yellow. Okay, so this is the differences. And why I'm using this? Because I want a warmer tone in my lights of the onto these clothes. Okay, so this is why I'm using that. If I want a lighter a colder light, I probably use for example this one, and adding a little bit of this one, because this is very cold, but this color don't have the value that I need. Okay, so keep in mind this kind of tips when you are thinking about what color I need to make my lights in the colors. Okay, you could use a variety of colors and and hues. So depending of the things that you want onto your miniature, okay? Thinking in the temperature, in the color harmony, okay? Okay, so I'll start to mix my color for lights, okay? I'm mixing a new color, as you could see in the background, because I don't want to make so desaturated that the previous base color, okay? So I'm making a new mix with the same colors, but I'm not adding the darkest one, okay? This is the color that makes more neutral my base tone, okay? Okay, so I have on my palette, okay, a cool creamy tone and warm, very warm. And I'll start to make the lights in this way. Okay, as you could see, I'm doing some kind of lines in order to suggest some kind of texture. Okay, making this horizontal movement with the brush, you could achieve this kind of textures. The textures is a very large world, and you could make textures depending on how you move the brush, and depending with part of your brush are painting. So you could paint some textures with a very old brush, with the bristles very open as well. You could make textures with this kind of how it's called? This is the foam which comes in the blisters with the miniatures. Okay, so you could make some strips. Okay, later I will add some dirt in this cloth with the foam. And I must to say that it's very funny to make this kind of textures, okay? So try to make some kind of these things. Okay. Of course, I highlight the edges. It's very important in every part of the miniature. Some dotting in the lower parts in order to suggest some damage. And of course here the same, some lights. And this is my sketch for lights. Pretty simple, it isn't? Okay. So I'll make the same in this part. With the same color, and this time I'll try to leave the darker color between these parts and the adjacent parts in order to make some black lining between them. This will give me more definition on the miniature. Remember, this scale is so important, the definition. This is the difference between a smooth and clean miniature and an undefined miniature, which will look weird for the viewer. Okay guys, you are very quiet today, so there's no questions. Okay, these parts of the arm are more smaller than this one, so at the end they are more easy to paint because you only need to focus on the main wrinkles. Okay, but at the end it's very important to define the elements of the miniature. It's not about everything to paint miniatures about the face and the body. You know, these parts are pretty important to make it well defined. Okay, so for the only a little explanation about this part. As I told you before, is part which is more hidden than the other ones in the miniature. So this is beneath the belly and between the legs and so on. So I don't need to use this color to highlight this. So I'll prefer to mix this color with the previous one a little bit to darken the color of the lights. So in order to define this part, I don't need to apply too much light because my base coat is so dark. So this will be enough for this part. Remember to make this kind of differentiations. I was talking about in previous live streaming about these kind of things, because as you could see, the light of the head or maybe in this exposed area of the leg is not the same that the light of this feet that is more hidden to the light. Okay, so this kind of variations in your lining will make the miniature more interesting for the viewer. Okay, something like that will be enough, and I think now this part is now visible with a little bit of light. Probably I will darken a little bit this part, but first of all is to define. Okay. Okay, I will add some touches of points of light, adding more of the light color to my previous mix, and I will add some lights with this mix in this way. Those are my final lights for this part. Okay, so to highlight the edges, sometimes it's better to turn down the miniature in this way, and in this way you could reach with your brush to those edges in a more easy way. Okay, like this one, for example. And of course, in these wrinkles, those edges need to be highlighted. Okay, in this way. Okay, so this is everything that this part needs in order to make a good light sketch, sorry. And I could add some dots in the below part in order to suggest the damage, to increase the effect that I did in the previous step. Little light point there and here as well. Okay. I need a little bit of light here, so I apply them. Okay. And in the front part, it's pretty the same. In these little areas as well, I repeat again, keep in mind to highlight the edges. And with this in mind, is almost everything done. In this way. In the more exposed area, I apply more layers of paint in order to achieve more contrast. Okay, I'm painting with the paint with some dilution. Okay, hello cat. we have some special guest today. Okay, and I could add little light points for this part as well. Now with the pure, almost the pure color, light color in some parts like this. Remember to extend the light a little bit in order to not paint a non-metallic metal in this part of cloth. You don't need these kind of effects. Okay, so as I mentioned, you could notice that I didn't paint this part anymore. You could make little highlighting in the edges only to define them a little bit more in this way, but only few touches in order to mark better the dirt and the damage onto the cloth, something like that. Okay, you don't need to expand the light like I did in this part. Okay, so I'm always smoothing these parts with the eyebrows, but if you might, you could as well smooth this part with the brush. So only to make something different today, I will mix a middle tone for this part, and I'll dilute this mix way further than normal in order to make this consistency. Okay, something like that. You could see how the paint flows in the surface is something different to the sorry, you could see this. Okay, perfect. You could see how the paint flows, okay, in this way, and I could paint way better with them. Then this is the paint straight to the bottle that flows, but very difficultly. And of course, I don't want to mean to dilute your paint to the endless. Okay, imagine this dilution. Okay, is like almost water with a drop of paint. I don't mean this kind of dilution. I mean something like that. Okay, something in the middle. Okay. And I will make some glazes onto my surface in this way. It's pretty something similar that the dilution that you need for your eyebrows. So if you don't have eyebrows, don't worry, you could blend your gradients onto your miniatures. Okay. But I must to say that probably with the airbrush is way quicker the process, okay? But you could be more precise with the brush instead. So I think that the perfect way is to combine these two techniques, okay? Don't worry if in the first layer you don't see everything smooth. You need to dry, to wait until the glaze is completely dry, and you could start. You could add another layer in order to achieve more smooth gradients. I'm almost off of the camera, sorry again. Okay, you could make these little drops of paint in the gradients that are more noticeable to the eye. In this way, okay? I'm making little dots in these parts, and I'm dropping more paint in these areas. So this means that when the paint dries, will be more smooth this part, because I'm putting more pigment on this side of the gradient, okay? And of course, I'll need to enhance some shadows, okay? So now this dilution is not like glazes, okay? Let's water it down. Okay, but I need to add some deepness to the wrinkles. So in this step, I will make some shadowing in this part. Okay. Something like that. Oops. And the last step for this part is to retouch some mistakes, like this one that I have painted with my shadow color over there. Here pretty the same, and in this way I am refining the gradients. Okay, it's not so time consuming, this process with glasses, so my advice is try different techniques in order to have more variety of tools for painting miniatures. Don't limit yourself, okay? I'm adding some dotting and some lines in this final step of the tiling for the same reasons as before, to simulate the dirt and the years of playing fantasy football onto this guy. Okay. And reinforcement, making some reinforcement in the lining, overall, mostly in the upper parts, in this way. Okay, so this part for me is ready to go. Of course, I'm painting the miniature But in the final step, I'll retouch everything. I make some combination of the techniques that I'm explaining to you through the all of these live streamings. Okay, so it's a combination of everything, of smoothing with the brush, with the airbrush, making some definition, enhancing the lights in some points, in other enhancing the shadows, as you already saw in the piece of the cloth of the back. And it's about these final steps. It's about to making little retouches. Okay, so for me this part is okay as well. Hello guys, is anyone there? Okay, I hope you like the results, and I'll move onto the leather parts of the gloves, of the boots, and the belt. Okay, so first of all, I will apply a dark base coat over these parts, okay, because are needs to be defined. I have painted with the light color over them, and in this way I make some black lining onto these belts in this way. Now you could see it better. It isn't? Okay. Here there is another belt. This belt is already in a dark base tone, so this is okay for me. Needs to be retouched a little bit, but it's okay. And the boots as well. I will make this separation with the skin darker, okay, and this strip that I am already seeing is the strip of this piece of armor, okay. Now is more visible. I think this separation, I have painted the separation between the glove and this cloth, so I'll use this dark color to separate them in this way. You need to be very precise in these steps in order to define precisely the elements, okay? So this is probably one of the most time-consuming steps in the process. And I will make some separation between the shoulder pad and the piece of cloth that I already painted in this way. Okay? Probably now you will see it more defined. And you could notice that I'm not painting anything on these parts of leather. They have no light, no shadows. It's only a base coat, dark base coat, that is the thing that will defining these parts. Now when I will add the light onto these parts, it's more definition. So this is everything I want. Okay. Again, this part is the separation between the fingers and the glove. And I paint in this darker color for the same, exactly for the same reason. Now you have these parts defined. Of course, you could leave in this color, but will be so boring, I think. So I will add some light, some texture to these leather parts. Okay. Okay, so to add some texture, as I told you at the beginning of the streaming, I will use a light color like I did for the texture of the sketches of the previous live streaming. If you don't saw the streaming, it's a huge miniature, so you could make this kind of texture in large miniatures, but you could make them pretty in the same way in these small scales. So to make that, I will use, let me find this. This is a very good color to make. Here they are. To make these textures, okay, Sunny Skin Tone, because have a high value, is very light, the color, and in addition have a warmer component in the temperature, okay, and the most important thing is that this color have a lot of power coverage. So for me is very good in order to make this kind of sketches. Okay, probably is too much lighter to use straight to the bottle, so I will darken a little bit with some kind of brown, okay, like this one. Okay, you could see that I'm achieving, this is another trick that I will explain you. If you make some brown like this one with a light color like this one, you'll start to achieve the saturated colors that I told you before in these other mixes. But sometimes you don't want to make something so desaturated. So in order to achieve a more saturated color, what do you need is to add some primary, or in this case the secondary colors, to my mixes. Okay, so this is the way that I achieve some saturation. Okay, pure orange to this mix will give me a texture no so desaturated that is pretty real. Okay, and now I could add the lighter color, and I will obtain a perfect color for my next step. Okay, so again, as you could guess, I'll start to add some texture to these parts. Okay, let's start with the boot in this way. First of all, I highlight the edge in this way. This will give me extra definition because I have a dark line between the flesh and the boot and a light line in the edge. And now I'll start to make this kind of dots, lines, and it's like a crazy movement with your brush that will give you this texture for these leather parts. Of course, these textures are not needed in the more smaller parts, like probably, I don't know, these kind of belts. You could make some kind of texture, but you don't need to make so detailed like this one, okay? Okay, and okay, here comes duration. Okay, so for the strips of leather you could make something similar like this. Sorry for the position, but I need some precision to make these lines. Okay, something like that. And as well, in this strip, some highlighting is needed this way, and in the you need to highlight both edges. Okay, the upper edge is the more logic edge to highlight, but in order to achieve more definition, I recommend you that you highlight a little bit the lower edge. Okay. Sometimes it's difficult, but the result's worth it. Okay, something like that. Okay, and for the glove, pretty the same. I'm going to highlight the upper edge and some wrinkles, leaving darker the shadow wrinkles. Okay. Okay. Perfect. And the lower parts again needs to be defined. Sorry, because when I'm highlighting it takes me all my breathing and focusing on these kind of things, so this is why I'm stopped to talking. But I think it's more about to see it than to explain it, okay? So you get the idea, I think. I make another layer in order to reinforce some lights this way. Okay, and I could make little touches with the sunny skin tone that I mentioned before. Now straight to the bottle, but with some dilution. Okay, I paint always with some dilution, sometimes with low dilution, other times with high dilution making glazes, but always I'm more comfortable painting when my brush is able to draw and to drop the paint when I want, rather than painting with rough paint without dilution. Okay, so I'm trying to focus the light in this part, as you could see. And here little touches and just a little touch of light here. Okay, I forgot to paint the belt of the belly, so I make it in a quick way. Okay, you could spend more time like me than me in when you are trying this kind of techniques, but you could see that you could make something curious, something effective on the miniature without spending too much time. Okay, same technique, making little stripes and dots and highlighting again edges. Is again to make more defined elements onto this model. Okay, I'm very happy with the brush because the tip is so sharp. Another important thing that you need to keep in mind in order to make this dotting and thin lines, that you will need a very sharp brush, but you don't need a tiny brush. I'm painting with Da Vinci Maestro #1 and is big brush, but the paint, the tip is so sharp, so you don't need to use very thin brushes. And because this brush is so with a big body, it allows me to draw for a long time. Okay. By the way, is Maestro series 35. Okay, these series are brushes that are more sharper than the series 10, I think, and trust me, this tip is to killing flies or something like that. Okay, another thing that you start to see in the miniature is that I'm starting to paint almost all the parts of the miniature, and the other parts is started to get more defined because I'm painting the parts unpainted. So at the end, it's very important to keep moving from one part to another in the process of the painting, because sometimes some parts are more finished than the point that you believe they are. So I see the process of painting miniatures like something organic. You could jump to one part to another and defining, making more lights in these parts, more shadows, etc, etc. And when you reach to certain points, you will be almost near to the end of the process. So when I paint a miniature, I don't finish anything until the end. The final steps for me are the most important, maybe. Okay, so I'll paint a little bit the laces, because I think this part will be not understand for the eye if I don't paint these ones. Okay. Something like that will be enough to understand these elements onto this part. As always, I'm extending a little bit the streaming. Is something usual. Okay, now you see better this part. It isn't. And now the only thing that left to make a more real effect on this leather part is to darken a little bit with some inks. I use, for example, these inks from older Games Workshop brand, but of course you could use Liquitex, etc. So I will use this color because I love this. It's reddish brown, okay. And why I'm using inks? Okay, the reason is so easy. Is these high pigmented paints are a little bit glossy in this when it's applied onto the miniature. So this will simulate the satin finish of the leather. Okay. So using the inks with a little bit of dilution, of course, I'll start to apply them to the surface. Okay. Let me make one thing that I always love to do, is to add little touches of other colors to these washes. I'll use green, for example, magenta, for example. You could use, for example, blue, purple, something like that. And making little drops of these other colors onto the brownish ones, you'll get more variety of your leathers, okay? And when it's dried, the surface will be a little bit shiny. It's something that when you see the miniature in real, it's very nice to see this kind of effects. Of course, in the picture you will see something, but the effect is nicer in real. Okay. So this is my boot, almost ready. I will add some touches of blue, or sorry, of green. Try to make it in a random way. Don't try to make mathematical textures, okay, onto your miniatures. So for the other parts, it's pretty the same. This way. I could add some magenta in these parts, for example. And the tone, the hue of the leather changes a little bit. So this is good because I'm always looking for variety in my miniatures. So the boot will be some greeny stones, these stripes will be a little bit more magenta. These kind of things are spicy for the miniature. Okay, and for the belt I will use, for example, green and magenta, a combination that will give me a more darker tone because they are complementary tones. But at the end, another kind of brown. Okay, probably I will use definitely more green because around this belt is the skin. So if I add too much magenta to the belt, I will be making no differentiation between the belt and the skin. So these kind of decisions are free and could be made on the spot. Okay. So we are reaching to the end of this live streaming. Of course, I hope that you enjoyed. And don't forget to stay tuned to more live streaming like this one. The next one will be next Wednesday by David Arroba. And on Friday will be Jaime de Garnica. Continue with the normal live streaming that we started to make with the situation in order to spend with you some moments painting miniatures. So if you like this material, don't forget to support us and make some likes and subscribe to our YouTube channel Untitled Creatives, because we are uploading this material later for you if you couldn't be with us today. So this kind of things and much more will be there for you. Okay guys, so I think in the camera we'll sign a little bit the ink. So I love this effect. So I hope you like the streaming, and as I said before, I hope to see you again the next day with David Arroba. So stay tuned and stay safe and painting at home. Bye bye.